Hello, and welcome to my video series on cadences. The idea behind this is to show some common cadences from the 15th and 16th century, and hopefully you can use them in some way in your music. I think that they don't necessarily have to be copied verbatim for you to get stuff out of the voice leading patterns that you see and the different moods they create and the different things they can do. What cadences do is they control the flow of a piece. If you have too little of them, then you won't have as much shape in a piece. But if you have too many of them, then your piece won't build momentum. So this ties into what I'm about to say, which is a lot of the stuff I'm going to say reflects my own opinions about composition, and not opinions, but rather just the things that I use personally in my own composition. And I don't expect them to be right for everybody, and I'm not trying to force them on anybody. There's a big fear of saying anything objective in music now, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to say a lot of things that sound objective, but let it be known that unless I'm talking about the actual objective craft of the 16th century, it's my opinion, and it should be taken as that, just reflective of my experience and just doing this in the field, so to speak. I learned this stuff from listening and copying for my own music, and it took me a long time before I was doing anything but dropping my pants all over the place and embarrassing myself with polyphony. And also, this video does not focus on the hard part of composing, namely everything before the cadence. Canon, proportion, control of parts, none of that is here. These are just some cadences for you to look at, and I hope you get something out of it. Okay, the other thing I want to say is that the terminology I use is may or may not be accurate to contemporary musicology. I don't really care because musicology often reflects modes of thinking that were foreign to the time, and also it changes all the time. So I think we should be like music teachers in the 16th century, like Thomas Morley here, playing an easy introduction to practical music, which is ironic because 16th century polyphony is neither practical nor plain nowadays. But he says, look, you don't need to worry about all the 50-letter Greek words that they use to justify all the mathematical ratios and all this stuff. Just listen to me. We're going to talk about it practically. We're going to figure stuff out. And that's kind of how I treat it. So I hopefully you get something out of these cadences. This is going to be a series. This is just the first video. Okay, without further ado, let's get going. So the first cadence I want to go over is what I call a weak cadence, and it's where a 7/6 suspension is formed by the bass and the soprano. This is the first cadence you guys probably wrote in your Cantus Firmi exercises. Sound familiar? So in three voices, it sounds like this. You can also go that has to have four voices in it though. That actually relates to a video I made on a moment in Gibbons, which I'll continue later when I'm talking about what this cadence does. Okay, let me continue on here. Alternatively. Okay, so the deal with this cadence is that it's wistful. It has a sense of weight because it often descends to get into it, and it opens up a space of vulnerability when it's in major. In minor, which can easily happen, like watch, here's in major. Minor would just be. In minor, it kind of just propels the music forward. It's used as kind of like just a screw that connects things. And it keeps the focus. For some reason in minor, it really feels different. It really feels like it has more of a forward drive, whereas in major, it's just sort of wistful and vulnerable. And going back to the Gibbons video, in this piece, in the madrigal, you were in a very modal zone. a sudden, Gibbons goes. And although that gave nothing of the effect, you should go listen to it because it really did exactly what I'm talking about here. It gave a sense of vulnerability and wistfulness to words that suggested that. The words were, "Poor prisoners of the Marshalsea," so saying, have some pity on the poor prisoners of the Marshalsea, and it went to this pathetic sound. So, in Renaissance terminology, this is called, I think, clausula vera, I think, and that means full close. So, ironically, that once you get past, which is very old, that's like 14th and 13th century. Once you get past that, you don't really find that as a closed piece. You always find full cadences, which we'll go on to next. So you don't really use it to close a piece, but you instead use it to open up a zone. Okay, let's go on to the next thing. Next thing is 4/3 cadences. These are your bread and butter. I use them all the time. They can be used to end. They can be used to just pause for a second. And they're basically this sound. So, okay. Okay, let me go through them. Point something out about this. It's okay to have what we would call major 6 chords in jazz in cadences, like so. As long as it goes in that way. So I have a piece of it like this. Okay, anyway, let's move on here. Okay. Now these can be used just as well in the minor. Okay. So these are a powerful resource. You shouldn't overuse them. They can convey a lot of different things. They can convey nobility, power, austerity, clarity, calm, determination, whatever. It all depends on the setup. You should treat the alto voice carefully in this. Sometimes it should descend to the 5th, and sometimes it should rise. And I'll give you an example. In this one, oh no, sorry, that's a different one. Okay, in this one, it should descend to the 5th. So notice I went like this. Instead of, that's mainly to fill out the voices and give a 5th to the chord. This is not great movement. It's not great movement, but you should be aware of when to use that and when to go. The rule I use is, well, and of course all rules are like, rule is the wrong word, but if you are descending constantly in the alto voice in the cadence, then you should move up to resolve. Like so. But if you are coming from the bottom like this, sorry, it needs to be in the alto voice. That was in the soprano voice. So like, sorry, then it can go down. if you are coming up like this. Okay, so this is obviously a really versatile cadence. Those are some examples of it. One more thing you should be aware of is that you don't have to resolve all the voices in a cadence. A common technique is to let the soprano hang. And then you come in later, starting there, where it should have resolved. This is a way to kind of give elegance to cadences. Cadences should sound natural. Sometimes you need to, if they constantly plod, then it's a problem. You need to figure out which voices can be left out. And also another choice on this cadence, when you're doing a full cadence, whether you end with a third or whether you just have fifths. Fifths, I find, create a clean slate for further invention. If you want to give a sense of curiosity to your listeners and not more of a story, if you're making a clearing, then use fifths, because fifths really wipe the slate clean. Okay, let's go on to the other type. So this is the consonant fourth cadence. This is a pretty luxurious cadence. It's used to end, and it has a very striking tone because it has a seventh in it, and it also has a 4/3 suspension. So it's like this. You can move the bass down a whole step so that you form 2 sevenths. This is permitted by Purcell in his only written work on part writing, and it's very common in English music of this period. And that's a very powerful resource. You can also delay it like this. That works really well. So there are many, many, many different ways to play this cadence. I'll show you some of them. So it's nice to double the tonic on this particular cadence so that all the movement happens in between. It's not good to double thirds like this. If you do it in 3 voices, it's okay. But with this, you end up with this. Consecutive octaves. So one thing you can do is you have one voice leap up like this. Okay, so it's important not to double the fifths or the third in that cadence. And if you do double the fifth, leap up to the tonic. That's not good, but that's better. Okay, so these are a couple cadences. Next time I will show you plagal cadences, Phrygian cadences, plagal, and Phrygian, and variations on those. And I'll also show you Landini cadence, which is old and pretty limited, but anyway, we'll go into that. So I hope you got something out of this video, and there's stuff to think about, and you should go listen to this music to hear how these cadences are really used in effect, because they don't really mean anything unless you put them. It all depends on where they're going. But in general, to summarize, the first thing I showed you was the weak cadence, and that should not be used to close, but instead open up. It has kind of a tender feeling, I would say. 4/3 cadences are very flexible. They can be approached in different ways. you should be aware of when to use a third in the resolution and when to just use fifths, and also when to drop voices out. You are allowed to do that. Dropping voices out in a cadence, in the resolution of the cadence, is a good way to make the energy flow feel more natural. And the consonant fourth cadences that I just showed you, so called because you have this sound in it, but it's okay because it's in a cadence. Those are used to end. You can use that the consecutive sevenths, and yeah, there are a lot of different ways to approach it. This movement is particularly important, bass movement. I'll just play a soprano and bass. Like this. It's just an important pattern to recognize. It can go either up or down with the bass. And I think I'm just kind of rambling here, so I'll let you go and take a look at these. See if you might want to, use any of the way the voices move in your own music. They're just important to be aware of, important sounds to be aware of. And they are from the 16th century. But I don't know. I just thought I'd make a video on them. Hope you enjoyed it. So, see you later.